Long ago, before humans first touched the stars, the galaxy was already filled with civilizations older than time itself. Some of these civilizations built empires of light and knowledge. Some fought endless wars, and some simply vanished, leaving behind nothing but ruins and echoes. Among the oldest treasures of those ages was a star map, a vast record carved on crystal plates and stored in the Library of Avarice, a place whispered about even by the wisest alien historians. The map was said to be the oldest in the galaxy, created before most living races even learned how to make fire. This star map showed every star system, every planet, and every path across the void. But hidden inside its glowing lines was something strange, something disturbing. One world was not simply marked as destroyed or lost. It was completely removed. The place where it should have been was empty, cut out, as if the universe itself had been rewritten to erase it. Generations of alien scholars saw this missing place, yet they never spoke of it. They turned away. They refused to ask questions, and they warned their young to never stare at the blank space too long. Some said even speaking of it could bring ruin. Over time, the erased world became more of a shadow than a mystery, a silence no one dared to break, but silence cannot hold forever. One race, the youngest of the stars, was different. Humanity, still new to the galactic stage, still seen by many as reckless children, stumbled across the legend of this erased world. They found it by accident, inside old records traded from a dying alien archivist who spoke his last words to a group of human explorers. He whispered, "The oldest star map has one world missing, and no one dares to find it." Before closing his eyes forever, the humans stared at the ancient fragment with curiosity. Unlike the others, they did not feel fear. They felt something else, something that always pushed them to explore oceans, climb mountains, and walk on the moon. They felt wonder, and with wonder came the hunger to know the truth. Why would a civilization erase a whole world from the first star map? Why was every alien too afraid to even speak its name? And what secret was worth hiding from the entire galaxy? As whispers spread across the stations and colonies, alien traders grew nervous whenever humans mentioned the erased world. Some warned them to stop asking questions. Others walked away in silence, eyes wide with something that looked too much like terror. The more the galaxy tried to silence humanity, the more determined they became. For the humans, mystery was not a warning, it was an invitation. And so the first seed of obsession was planted. Somewhere, out in the darkness, there was a missing world, a world no one wanted to see, a world humanity decided they must find. The story of the erased world soon became a quiet rumor in human fleets. Pilots whispered about it during long voyages. Soldiers told it over campfires on distant moons. Scientists debated it in labs filled with alien technology. Each version of the story grew larger, stranger, darker. Some said the planet had been home to a godlike species who disappeared overnight. Others claimed it held weapons so powerful that the galaxy itself chose to hide them. And a few believed the world was not erased, but sleeping, waiting for someone bold enough to wake it. Still, the evidence was real. The oldest star map, stored across fragments in scattered archives, always showed the same empty place, the erased world, never named, never explained. The silence around it screamed louder than any answer. When a group of young explorers from Earth gathered inside a station orbiting Alpha Centauri, they stared at the glowing star map fragment in awe. Their leader, Captain Elias Ward, was the first to break the silence. He looked at the erased gap and whispered, "If they wanted it forgotten, then that means it's worth remembering." The crew exchanged glances, each of them knowing in their hearts that their lives had just changed. The galaxy's oldest secret had just become humanity's newest mission, unknown to them. In the dark corners of the galaxy, ancient watchers stirred. Eyes that had been closed for centuries opened once more. Whispers echoed in languages long dead. For the first time in ages, someone was daring to look for the missing world, and the galaxy itself seemed to shiver in anticipation, because sometimes mysteries are buried for a reason. Sometimes silence is the only protection, but humanity had never been good at staying silent. The discovery of the erased world spread quietly through human space. At first, it was nothing more than a whisper among explorers and scholars, a strange puzzle hidden inside a fragment of the oldest star map. But soon the whispers grew, louder, turning into debates, then into arguments, and finally into obsession. For humans had always been drawn to the unknown, and this mystery was larger than any they had faced before. Other species in the galaxy warned them. The reptilian Vair hissed that it was cursed. The ancient Cerrone refused to even look at the map fragment, closing their many eyes in fear. The proud Koresh simply said, "Leave it buried," before vanishing from the chamber. Yet every warning, every silence, only sharpened humanity's hunger. In a council on Earth's orbital station, leaders and explorers gathered to study the map. The fragment glowed faintly, its lines etched with impossible precision. Every system was clear, every orbit traced with care, but in the heart of that map there was the hole, the erased place. It was not just empty, it was wrong, like a scar across the skin of the universe. Dr. Celine Grant, a historian of alien cultures, spoke with quiet determination. "Every species is afraid of it," she said. "But fear does not erase truth. If someone tried to hide this world, then it means it mattered. And if it mattered once, it will matter again." Her words settled over the chamber like a shadow. No one argued, for deep inside, every human there already agreed. Captain Elias Ward, the man who had first seen the fragment in Alpha Centauri, stood and raised his hand. "We are not like them," he said, his voice steady. "We are not creatures who turn away from mystery. We crossed oceans when others clung to their shores. We climbed mountains when others feared the sky. And now we stand on the edge of a greater sea, a sea of stars. If the galaxy trembles at the thought of this erased world, then that is exactly why we must go." A silence followed, long and heavy. Then one by one, heads nodded. The decision was made. Humanity would seek the missing world. Across the colonies, the news spread like fire. Some cheered, calling it the greatest adventure of the age. Others whispered in dread, wondering if humanity was walking willingly into a trap laid by civilizations long dead. But no voice of caution was loud enough to stop what had already begun. The first expedition was being planned. The fleet would be small, for secrecy was important. A handful of ships, fast and sharp, carrying only the most determined souls. They were explorers, scientists, soldiers, and dreamers, united not by duty, but by curiosity. Each of them knew the risk. Each of them also knew that if they succeeded, they would rewrite the history of the galaxy. And yet, the galaxy itself seemed to watch on distant stations. Alien merchants spoke in hushed tones about the reckless humans. On forgotten moons, old machines flickered to life as if waiting. In the deep void, strange signals moved across the stars, too faint to be understood, but not faint enough to ignore. Something was stirring. Something old, something patient. The moment humanity chose to seek the erased world, it was as if ancient eyes turned toward them. On the eve of departure, the crew of the flagship Odyssey gathered in silence. The great vessel floated in orbit above Titan, its black hull gleaming against the light of Saturn. Inside, corridors hummed with power. The explorers stood together, staring at the holographic projection of the star map. The erased place glowed faintly at the center, like a wound waiting to be touched. Dr. Celine Grant whispered, "Why was it erased? Why would a civilization remove their own world?" No one answered, for no one knew, but Captain Ward placed his hand on the map, his face calm but his eyes burning with fire. "Because they feared what was there," he said, and fear is. No reason to forget. With those words, the fleet was launched. Engines roared, light flared, and the ships leapt into the void. Humanity had taken the first step into forbidden space. Every alien eye turned to watch, waiting for them to fail. But deep inside, even those who mocked humanity felt a shiver, because in that moment it was clear. If any race could succeed where all others had refused, it would be the humans. As the stars streamed past, the crew of the Odyssey felt the weight of the unknown. Pressing closer, they had no map to guide them, no warnings to follow, only fragments, whispers and shadows. Every second carried them deeper into silence. Every jump drew them closer to the scar in the galaxy's oldest map, and in the distance, unseen and waiting, something ancient stirred awake. It had been patient for centuries, sleeping in the dark. But now, footsteps were coming, human footsteps, and the erased world was ready to be found again. The fleet of humanity moved deeper into the unknown. Stars stretched into lines as the Odyssey and its companions jumped from system to system. Every leap carried them closer to the erased gap on the ancient map. But with each jump, the silence of space grew heavier, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. At first, there was nothing, just empty systems, lonely suns, barren planets, and dust. The crew began to wonder if the erased world was simply gone, wiped out long ago. But then the first clue appeared. It was a broken signal, faint and trembling, caught by the Odyssey's long-range array. A voice, cracked and distorted, repeating the same line over and over again. Do not return. Do not return. Do not return. No one could tell what language it once was, or even if it was alive or machine, but its rhythm was unmistakable. A warning sent across centuries. The crew gathered in the command deck, listening to the loop play again and again. Dr. Celine leaned forward, eyes narrowing. This is not natural, she said. This was placed here, left like a scar. Someone wanted this message to last. Someone wanted us to turn back. But Captain Ward only shook his head slowly. If they left this warning, it means they feared discovery, and fear has never stopped us before. The crew looked at him, some uneasy, others inspired. The expedition continued. As they traveled deeper, more fragments were found. A derelict station, floating in silence around a dead moon, its walls covered in carvings of a world with two suns. But the planet itself had been carefully scratched. Away, gouged out as if by desperate hands. The carvings showed ships, fleets of them, leaving the planet in flames. The images ended with figures kneeling before the blank space, their heads bowed in eternal silence. Celine's voice was low when she spoke. This was not an accident. This was ritual. They erased their own home, and they wanted it erased forever. Her words lingered in the air like smoke. Yet still, the humans pressed forward. Every piece of broken evidence, every fragment of forbidden history, only deepened their resolve. For what other races treated as fear, humanity treated as a trail. And every trail demanded to be followed. Soon, rumors spread through the fleet. Some of the younger crew claimed they felt watched. Lights flickered without reason. Screens glitched with shadows. At night, some swore they heard whispers in the corridors, voices speaking in no tongue they knew. The engineers dismissed it as stress. The scientists blamed it on faulty systems. But deep inside, everyone felt the same truth. Something out there was watching them. The next clue came from a graveyard of ships, dozens of alien vessels floating dead around a collapsed star. Some belonged to species still alive, others to civilizations long extinct. Each ship bore the same mark, a jagged symbol carved into the hull. The same symbol was found in the ruins of the station, the same symbol carved into the ancient star map itself. The mark of the erased world. Captain Ward stood before it, his face hard. This is not just a missing world. This is something they tried to bury beneath fear, and if they went this far to hide it, then it must be greater than any of us imagined. But with every discovery, the tension inside the fleet grew. Some crew members begged to turn back. Others whispered of curses and doom, yet none dared leave, because humanity had crossed the point of no return. The path forward was the only path left at last. They uncovered the greatest clue of all, buried in the archives of a shattered beacon was a fragment of a star chart. It was older than anything they had ever seen, etched in a material no one could identify. And at its heart, glowing faintly, was the erased system. Not gone, not destroyed, but hidden. A planet shrouded in energy. Its coordinates masked by technology far beyond modern understanding. The crew stared at it in silence. They had proof now. The missing world was not legend, not myth. It was real, and it was waiting. But as they locked its coordinates, a shiver passed through the ship. The lights dimmed, the engines faltered. Every system screamed with static, and in the deep dark of the void, an unknown signal pulsed. Not a warning this time, not a plea, but a response. Something out there had heard them. Something alive, something ancient, something patient. And now it knew that humanity was coming. The coordinates were set. The fleet of humanity pointed its bows toward the erased system. Engines hummed with power, and the stars stretched like rivers of light as they prepared for the jump. But every soul aboard the Odyssey felt the same weight pressing on their chest. This was no longer a search for clues. This was the crossing into forbidden space. The jump was unlike any they had made before. Instead of smooth light and shifting stars, the void screamed. Static tore across the ship's walls. Alarms blared, and every screen showed flashes of symbols no one could translate. Crew members clutched their heads, hearing whispers inside their minds. Some swore they saw faces in the dark, pressed against the glass of the observation deck. And then, silence. The fleet had arrived. But what they saw was not a system. It was a labyrinth. Stars twisted in unnatural orbits. Fragments of planets hung frozen in space as if time itself had shattered them. Black storms moved across the void, spirals of energy older than the galaxy itself. Everywhere they looked, the laws of nature seemed broken. Celine whispered, her voice trembling. This is not space. This is a cage. The ships moved slowly, carefully, engines burning at minimal thrust. Sensors screamed with false readings. Compasses spun wildly. Every direction seemed wrong. Every path twisted back on itself. And yet, faintly, at the heart of the chaos, was the erased world, a shadow wrapped in veils of energy, pulsing like a heartbeat. As they drew closer, the traps began. The first came as a field of debris, a sea of shattered metal drifting silently. At first, the crew thought it was the remains of ships lost long ago. But then the wreckage came alive. Jagged pieces moved with purpose, slamming into the fleet like predators. Shields flared, hulls cracked. Alarms howled through the corridors. The ships fought their way through, blasting the fragments apart. But for every piece destroyed, another moved to attack. It was not random, it was defense. An ancient guardian made from the bones of the fallen. The Odyssey pushed forward, its guns carving a path. Behind them, two smaller ships burned, torn apart by the storm of living wreckage. Dozens of human lives lost in moments. Yet still, the fleet pressed on. The second trap came as light, a sun that should not have existed. Flared into life. Blinding beams cut across the void, burning through shields like paper. Crew members screamed as systems fried. The ships twisted and dove, engines howling, fleeing into shadow. When the light faded, the sun was gone, not collapsed, not destroyed, simply gone, as if it had never been there at all. Celine's voice shook as she studied the data. This is not random. These are tests. Whoever built this place wanted to stop intruders. Every step closer to the world will only bring more. The crew listened in silence. Some began to fear that they were not explorers anymore. They were prey, and something ancient was hunting them. The third trap was the worst. A signal, faint and beautiful, slipped into the fleet's communication systems. It was a voice, soft, soothing, speaking in perfect English. It said, "Welcome home." The crew froze, listening as the voice filled every speaker. Some began to cry, some smiled with strange calm, one by one. They rose from their stations, walking slowly toward the airlocks, eyes empty, faces blank. Captain Ward shouted orders, but his voice was drowned by the lull of the song. Dozens walked into the void without hesitation, bodies drifting into the black. The ship's AI finally cut the signal, ripping silence back into the corridors. But the damage was done. Hundreds were gone, swallowed by the ancient lie. Ward's fists clenched as he stood on the bridge. They knew we would come. They built this place to stop us. But we are not turning back. If this is a test, then humanity will be the first to pass it. The crew that remained rallied behind his words. Fear burned in their hearts, but so did something stronger, defiance. For the first time, the erased world seemed closer, not just as a shadow, but as a challenge. The fleet limped forward, scarred but alive. Around them, the void shifted, as if the traps themselves were growing stronger. But at the heart of it all, the erased world pulsed like a heartbeat, waiting, watching, calling, and deep inside the darkness, something moved. It had been asleep. For ages, it had watched countless intruders fall, countless fleets burn. But now, for the first time, it stirred with curiosity, for this was no ordinary race. This was humanity, and they were still coming. The traps had torn the fleet apart. Ships were lost, men and women gone, systems burned and silent. But against all odds, the Odyssey, and what remained of its companions, emerged from the labyrinth. And for the first time, they saw it. The erased world, it hung before them, suspended in a storm of light and shadow, a planet wrapped in veils of energy that shimmered like water and crackled like fire. The surface below was hidden, yet the world pulsed faintly, like a heart beating in the dark. Even from orbit, the crew felt its presence, not just with their eyes, but with their minds. It was as if the planet itself was watching them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Every console was silent, every hand frozen, every voice trapped in awe and terror. Seleni's breath caught as she whispered, "It's alive." The whole planet, it's alive. Captain Ward did not answer. His eyes locked on the veils of energy. In his chest, his heart pounded, not from fear, but from certainty. This was what they had crossed the void for. This was the world erased. From history, the fleet circled carefully, scanners reaching out, but the planet resisted. Every probe sent into orbit vanished in seconds. Every signal was twisted, scrambled, or echoed back in strange voices. The machines failed, but the whispers grew louder, voices that no one wanted to hear. Some spoke of welcome, some of warning, some of hunger. The voices overlapped until they filled the crew's dreams. Every night, they heard them whispering in languages long dead. Every morning, they woke with shadows in their minds. Finally, Ward gave the order. "We are going down." The crew stared at him in shock. The planet had swallowed probes, destroyed ships, killed thousands, but he stood firm. "If we stop now, then humanity has gained nothing. We came to find the truth, and we will stand on that world, even if it kills us." They, landing craft, broke through the veils of energy. The moment they entered, the ship screamed with strain. Metal groaned, systems dimmed, gravity shifted. Crew members felt their bones ache, as if the planet itself pressed against them. But still, the craft descended, through fire, through storm, through shadows that clawed at the windows like hands. And then, silence. The craft touched ground. The humans stepped onto the erased world, and they froze. Before them stretched a land of ruins, cities taller than mountains, towers broken and crumbled. Statues of beings no one recognized, their faces worn smooth as if erased by time itself. The ground was carved with symbols glowing faintly, not with fire, not with technology, but with something older, something alive. Celine knelt by the carvings, tracing them with trembling fingers. "These are not warnings," she whispered. "These are memories." Every symbol was a story, a fragment of history, buried by hands that feared its return. But the more she read, the colder her voice became. They were not erased by an enemy. They erased themselves. The ruins stretched endlessly, silent streets where no wind blew, no birds sang, no life stirred, and yet the humans felt eyes on them at every step. Shadows shifted when no one moved. Walls hummed with low voices, and far above, in the broken towers, faint lights flickered and vanished. As if something still lived here, as if something still remembered. At the heart of the city, they found it. A monument unlike the others, a colossal structure shaped like a star map, carved into black stone, every system, every world marked across its surface, and in the center, glowing with faint light, the erased planet itself. But this time, it was not blank. This time, it showed what had been hidden. The humans stared in silence. The map revealed that this world had once been the center of the galaxy, not in power, not in armies, but in knowledge. Every race, every civilization once came here to learn. It was the first library, the first beacon, the first home of wisdom. But something changed, something too dangerous to remain. And so they buried it. They buried their own home and erased it from the stars. The crew stepped back in dread. What could be so powerful, so dangerous, that an entire race chose to erase itself? What truth was so terrible that silence was safer than memory? As they stood, the ground shook, the ruins trembled, dust fell like ash from broken towers, and the voices grew louder. Not whispers now, but thunder. They echoed in every ear, in every mind, a single phrase repeated again and again. "You should not have come." The crew froze, eyes wide, hearts pounding, "Captain." Ward clenched his fists, his voice low but steady. "Then we came to the right place." And in that moment, the erased world awakened. The ground of the erased world shook beneath their boots. Dust swirled through the air, like ash from a fire that had never gone out. The voices in their minds grew louder, no longer whispers, but a chorus of thousands, every word layered on the next, impossible to separate, yet all carrying the same meaning. "You should not have come." The humans staggered back, clutching their heads. Some fell to their knees, blood running from their noses. Others screamed in silence, unable to bear the weight of the sound that was not sound. But Captain Ward stood tall, fists clenched, eyes locked on the glowing star map carved into the black stone. "We are here," he shouted into the void, "and we will not leave without the truth." For a moment, everything stopped. The trembling ceased, the voices fell quiet. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the monuments came alive. The statues shifted. Their blank faces flickered with images. The walls of the ruins glowed with light. And the city itself spoke. Visions filled the humans' minds. They saw the erased world as it once was, alive with light, alive with knowledge. Beings unlike any other race walked its streets, tall, radiant, their minds vast and sharp. Every species of the galaxy once came here, drawn to the heart of wisdom, and the world welcomed them all. For centuries, it was the center of everything, the birthplace of unity, the first civilization, the mother of the stars. But then came the discovery, something buried in the very fabric of the universe, a truth too great, too dangerous to be spoken. The vision shifted, and the humans saw what the ancients had seen. A force woven into the stars, not alive, not dead, not God, not machine. It was hunger, pure and endless. A hunger that fed not on flesh, but on thought, on knowledge itself. The more a mind knew, the more it drew the hunger, The wiser the galaxy became, the faster the darkness grew. And at the center of it all was the erased world, the brightest flame of knowledge, the first to be noticed, the first to be consumed. The humans gasped as the vision burned through them. They saw cities devoured, libraries turned to dust, towers crumbling as the hunger swept across the world. The ancients fought, but every answer, every weapon, every idea only made it stronger. The more they struggled, the faster the hunger fed. Until they realized the truth, the only way to stop it was to erase themselves, to silence their own light, to bury their home so deeply that the galaxy would never find it again. Selene fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. They killed their own history, she whispered. They erased themselves to save everyone else. The vision showed the last of the ancients. Gathered at the monument, they carved the star map into stone, removed their own world, and sent warnings across the stars. Then they vanished into silence, their sacrifice hidden, their world erased. The ruins flickered, the vision ended. Humans stood in stunned silence, the weight of the truth pressing down on them. For a long moment, none could speak. The erased world was not cursed by chance. It was buried by choice, a grave built by its own people. Not to hide treasure, but to contain a nightmare. But the silence did not last. The ground trembled again. Louder now, the towers cracked and split. The voices returned, sharper, filled with urgency. "You should not have come," they roared. "You should not have come." The hunger stirred, awakened by new minds. Fresh knowledge, fresh fire, the veils of energy around the world shimmered violently, tearing apart like thin cloth. From the sky, black storms fell, swallowing the horizon. The planet itself screamed, a sound that shook mountains and cracked the air. The crew staggered back, weapons raised, though they knew weapons were useless. Some cried out in terror, others shouted prayers. But Ward's voice cut through the chaos. "We know the risk." He roared, "We see the danger, but we are human, and we will not run from truth." His words struck like fire in the hearts of the crew. For though they were afraid, though the hunger pressed closer, their defiance burned brighter. Selene looked at him, her eyes wide. "If we open what they buried, we may unleash it again. It will consume everything, not just us, not just this world, but the galaxy itself." Ward's jaw tightened. "Or," he said, his voice like steel, "we may find a way to end it forever." They erased themselves to protect the galaxy. But maybe they didn't think like us. Maybe they didn't think like humans. The storm raged, the ruins cracked, the voices screamed. But inside the chaos, there was choice: run and leave the hunger to sleep again, or stay and face it. And humanity had never been the kind to run. The monument glowed brighter, symbols flaring like fire. A door opened at its base, wide and dark, an entrance into the heart of the erased world. The voices roared in fury, "Do not enter." But Ward stepped forward, his hand on the hilt of his blade. His eyes filled with fire. "We came for the truth," he said, "and we will take it, whatever the cost." And with that, humanity crossed the threshold, into the core of the erased world, into the heart of the nightmare that had once consumed the galaxy, and into the truth that no other race dared to face. The doorway yawned before them, a wound carved into the monument, black and endless. From within came a cold wind that carried no air, only whispers. Every crew member felt it crawl into their bones. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but humanity had never been the kind to turn away. Captain Ward stepped forward first, his boots striking the stone floor with steady defiance. Behind him, Selene and the others followed, their lights pierced the dark, yet the shadows clung stubbornly, refusing to be driven away. The corridor stretched down and down, deeper than any mountain. Walls pulsed faintly with veins of light, alive with memory, alive with warning. At last they reached a chamber. vast and silent. Its ceiling vanished into darkness. Its floor carved with symbols, glowing like embers. At the center stood a sphere, suspended in the air, spinning slowly. Inside the sphere was not matter, not metal, but pure thought, shifting images of stars, worlds, faces, knowledge itself. It was beautiful, but terrible. The heart of the erased world. Celine gasped, her voice trembling. This is it. This is what they tried to hide, the source of their knowledge. The reason they erased themselves, the voices returned, roaring like thunder across their minds. Leave, 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 the crew staggered, some clutching their heads, some falling to the ground. The sphere pulsed brighter, as if awakening. Fully for the first time in ages, and in that light, they saw it, the hunger. It was not a creature, not a shadow with claws. It was something deeper, a pull that wrapped around their thoughts, tugging, feeding every memory, every idea, every dream was drawn toward it. The more they resisted, the stronger it pulled. It wanted them, not their bodies, but their minds. It wanted to drink the fire of humanity, the same way it had devoured the ancients. One soldier screamed and dropped his rifle, his eyes rolling white. In seconds, his voice was gone, his face blank. He collapsed, hollow, his mind stripped bare. The crew shouted in horror, dragging him back, but he was empty, gone. Celine's voice cracked. We can't fight it. This is why they erased themselves. Once it awakens, nothing can stop it. But Ward stood firm, his fists clenched. No, they gave up. They silenced themselves because they feared the dark. But we are not them. We are human, and we do not erase ourselves. We fight, always we fight. The hunger surged, pulling harder. Ward felt his own memories slipping. He saw flashes of his childhood, his first steps into space, the faces of those he lost. One by one, they were being stolen. But instead of resisting with silence, he resisted with fire. He shouted into the void, his voice echoing in defiance. These memories are mine, and you cannot have them. The sphere pulsed violently, cracks splitting across its surface. The hunger shrieked, a sound that shook the chamber. For the first time, it was not feeding. For the first time, it was being pushed back. Celine's eyes widened, realization striking her. That's it. That's why we're different. The ancients tried to erase themselves, to deny the hunger, but humans do not erase. We endure. The more it feeds, the more we burn brighter, our pain, our loss, our struggle. It cannot consume it. It only makes us stronger. The crew rallied. They shouted. They sang. They remembered. Voices filled the chamber, filled the void, memories of earth, of oceans and mountains, of laughter and tears. The hunger tried to swallow them, but the flood was too great. For every thought it took, 10 more rose in its place. Not silence, but noise. Not fear, but defiance. Not surrender, but humanity. The sphere cracked fully, light bursting out in rivers. The chamber shook. The ruins trembled. The planet itself groaned. The hunger screamed, collapsing into itself, its endless pull shattered by a storm of human fire. And then, silence, the sphere shattered, fragments dissolving into the air like dust. The voices were gone. The pull was gone. The hunger was gone. The crew stood in stunned silence, their bodies trembling, their minds scarred. But alive, Celine whispered, tears streaming down her face. We did it. We ended what they could not. We broke the silence. Ward looked up at the glowing ruins. The erased world was no longer erased. Its story was no longer buried. Humanity had claimed it, not as victims, not as prey, but as survivors, as victors above them. The veils of energy that cloaked the world faded. The planet shone openly for the first time in ages, and across the galaxy, eyes turned in shock. The erased world had returned, not because it chose to awaken, but because humanity had chosen to remember. The fleet limped away from the surface, broken but victorious. Ward stood at the window of the Odyssey, staring at the stars. His voice was quiet but steady. The oldest star map had one world missing. Now it is found, and the galaxy will never forget again. But far in the dark, beyond even the erased world, something stirred. Not the hunger, not the ancients, but something older still, something that had felt humanity's fire, something that now knew the galaxy had a new player, and humans would never stop.